All right.
I get so confused about how to start when Joel's not here.
Yeah, he does all the work. something about. No, that's wrapping up chips. I'm like, how do you start? I know how we end.
We don't have chips. We're going to clap.
Ooh, that was a good clap.
That was really solid.
Yeah, thanks. I've been practicing at home. I sit in the bathroom and clap just to get the podcasting technique.
Get the right acoustics.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's important.
Dad's clapping again.
All right, hi everybody. I'm joined by Braden and Tim, and my name is Ethan. It is really exciting to have you here, Tim. You haven't been on the
I haven't.
Chip Lunch.
No,
Is that what this is?
This is the Chip Lunch podcast. Welcome to the Chip Lunch podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. But no, I'm the first timer, so thanks for having me
it's really
at
exciting.
the desk.
Did you also have your first time on the Shock Absorber recently? Was
I
that
did. Yes, it was my
He's on a
first time.
media tour.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Tim's actually releasing
I'm
a
promoting
book.
my new book. Make sure you buy at the places down below.
Here and here.
We actually can link to a book.
We can link to a book. Do you have something to sell? It's like a puppet.
You wrote something for a book.
I mean, I did write something for a book. It's I mean, it's a little academic, so I don't know how exciting it would be for the general populace. The general listener of Chip Lunch may not get really excited about me talking about.
What's it called?
The book is called Engage All Generations, and it's about intergenerational ministry. And I wrote a chapter called Socio-Cultural Something Church, talking about my favorite dead Russian, who's Vygotsky. So, if you want to read about educational psychology and a dead Russian dude and why that makes intergenerational church really formative for everyone, you can buy the book right there.
I actually don't know how to put links on the screen.
Oh, there you go.
We'll figure it out. It'll happen. It'll have happened by now. And that is heaps of fun. That's really cool. What got you into doing that?
Specifically that chapter, or just general? My daytime job.
Like, why do you have a favorite dead Russian?
Why do I have a favorite dead Russian? That is a great question. I've got a favorite dead Russian because he says what I want him to say, which is that when you gather people together who are unlike themselves, that's actually really formative for everyone. And so I really like that because I think that it is what the Bible is telling us about how we grow as disciples of Jesus. This guy is this dead Russian. He's not a Christian guy. He's not trying to think about church and faith formation, but he is trying to think about how children learn and grow in different areas. Particularly his interest was language. But the fact that he is noticing in his research that when children were hanging out with people who were slightly older than them, that was actually making them grow. And so rather than for the church, rather than just siloing off, like let's put all the year ones in a room and just keep them and teach them as year ones and give all the year threes and the year sevens and the year tens. Actually, there's real formative work that happens. We grow as disciples when we actually come together and we're actually hanging out and learning about what it means to be a Christian with people who are unlike ourselves. So I really like that because I'm super passionate about children's ministry and youth ministry. I really love the time that peers get to hang out together. But I also, being part of Soul Revival Church, I'm really passionate about hanging out with people who are unlike ourselves, which is cool.
And it's one of the things we're on about here because we think that Jesus calls us to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the fundamental reason I think that actually this is how God has designed us as Christians to be, is to actually grow in our knowledge, love and obedience to Jesus by hanging out with people who are unlike ourselves. I think that's really cool.
Very, very, very cool.
So that's why I wrote a chapter about a dead Russian.
Nice. I love that you went and found, you were like, oh yeah, Jesus tells us to do this. And I'm sure there's lots of Christian things that tell you to do this. But I found this random non-Christian dead Russian man who
But to be fair, he's not that random. He's pretty famous. If in the educational space, his name is Vygotsky, Lev Vygotsky, and anyone who's studied education in the last kind of 20 to 30 years will be familiar with his stuff. Okay. So it was basically finding the right theorist who is noticing the things that I wanted to notice.
Nice. Did you find when you were growing up, we could get your backstory properly, but as you were growing up, did you find yourself hanging out with older people and noticing that that's something in your life, or was that something that you feel like you were missing but would have gained more from?
Yeah, I think so. As I think about, like, I grew up in a Christian family and going to church regularly and going to school, Christian school. I suppose in the church is where you bump into the most people who are unlike yourselves regularly. And so when there was one church we were going to when I was very young, and then mid-primary school, my parents changed church to Guyamere. Actually, the first person I met as I walked into Guyamere was your granddad.
There you go.
Pete Crawshaw. Shout out to Pete. And as we walked in, he was the leader of the Sunday school at the time. And so I was this primary kid being brought up by my parents, and he greeted me at the door with this massive, g'day, how you going? Lovely to see you. And so what I really appreciate about that was that there was this great love that he had for Jesus and a great love that he had for making that known to particularly children. And so every week on Sunday mornings, I'd go and hang out with Mr. C. He would tell us the Sheffield Wednesday scores.
Yep.
And I think Sheffield Wednesday was doing a bit better in the mid to late 90s than they are doing right now.
Don't remind me.
Don't remind you. So
if anybody wants to join me, I'm for those of you who don't know, Sheffield Wednesday is a team in England that just got relegated, and we're all really sad about it. If anyone wants to join me in supporting the club by buying heaps of merch, I'm going to be doing a merch purchase around Christmas, so let me know.
All right, yeah, I'll get a jersey for you.
The away kit is pink, and I'm really excited.
I will not be getting an away jersey, but I'm really happy for a home one. Yeah, so that was really cool, and I think, all kids who go to Sunday school are obviously hanging out with people who are older than themselves in their leaders, but the attitude that leaders can have to that, one could be, I'm doing this because it's a ministry and I feel I should. One is, I feel obligated, or it might be that I'm really passionate about kids. Part of the network there is when leaders not just wanting to hang out with kids to teach them, but actually want to be their friends. I think that's really key. And that's what I noticed, whether, I don't know if they were doing this intentionally, I presume they were, but people like, your granddad, Pete Crawshaw, others, Adam Darvell, I think, was one of my leaders for a while. A few other people who are still at church with us today, and others I know who have moved to other churches. But they genuinely did want to be our friends. They wanted to get to know us as people, as well as teach us about Jesus and help us to grow as disciples. And so that was really formative, going through the Sunday school, and then after year 6 we had this thing called Brekkie Club. So Fee Francesconi was running that, and we would make breakfast every week and sit and read the Bible together. And again, there was something really just friendship based around that. It was relational, and it was people of different generations who genuinely wanted to be our friend and wanted to get to know us and shape us and sharing their lives with us. So yeah, that was really formative.
That's really cool. What about you, Braden? Did you have a similar or a different experience?
I think I had a pretty similar experience when I rocked up to church, in terms of the first night I rocked up to youth group, I'd never been to a church before. I think I said this in the first episode, but Joel, who's normally with us, and a friend called Michael Gray, who's now at another church, but they were both just being crazy and super excited to get to know me straight away. And yeah, they were seeing how many chairs they could jump over. That's how that youth group started. I think it was a spin to win night. But yeah, it was just older people who genuinely just wanted to be our friends. Like people like Craig Napper as well was another one of my leaders who genuinely, I love getting to chat with them now. It's so awesome to be, again, we've moved life stages as we've grown up, but I think they're still just as genuinely interested as they were on day one, which is really lovely to get to hang out. And I think, you don't hang out with, until you kind of finish high school, you don't really hang out with people of different, even little age gaps that much, I think, unless maybe you have a sibling's friends or something. I think, until you're out of high school, it's kind of like this you are segregated into years, and you hang out in your own little spot in the playground, and you hide off in the corner.
I think you're like more siloed in high school than I don't know if you ever are elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like you're like I'm in year 9. I'm hanging out with other year 9 boys, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I went to a Christian school where there was probably as many kids in the high school as there were in some of our local public schools. There might be all of year 9, there might be as many kids as there were in my whole high school.
Right.
So
yes, that would change things.
It just changes things because I think there was 60 people per grade in our high school, and so it did mean that even just in the playground, on the bus to and from, at different events, assemblies and stuff, there was actually plenty of not your grade people hanging around.
Okay.
And actually most of my best friends in high school were not my grade. I actually hung out with a lot of people who were older than me and a lot of people who were younger than me. I don't know why. But yeah, they ended up being some of my best friends during high school, and even after high school. I don't know if I'm in touch with anyone from my year now, but I'm still in touch with a few people who are older and a few people who are younger.
Yeah, that's really cool.
We spoke a little bit with Eth about being a Christian in primary school. Where did you go to primary school?
So it was the same school. So
all the way.
Yeah, so it was a K-12 school. So Shire Christian School. Now it was called Sutherland Shire Christian School. Then subtle name change.
Huge rebranding.
Yeah, massive rebranding. So I was there from K to 12, and I think I heard Gemma's episode of Chip Lunch a couple of weeks ago. I think that's the same school, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So similar kind of experience in that when you certainly in primary school, you don't always know that it's different, right? You don't know that it's kind of weird because it's just life. And maybe getting into high school, you realise it's a little bit different because you're more aware outside your own self that there are mates at youth group. Certainly when I was going to youth group at Gymea, there was probably about 80 kids coming to the year 7, 8 youth group. And I reckon 78 of those were from Kirrawee High. And then there was me and my mate from Shire. So we felt very much in the minority, that we didn't really know anyone. And so we were kind of the outsiders, which was really weird in some sense. That wasn't so. The group was really welcoming. The leaders were awesome, and there were some really great mates during that time. But going to primary school, the school was really intentional about building Jesus and the Bible into everything that you do. And so that, again, you don't realise when you're in primary school that's weird and different, but it's just part of the natural course, what you do. And then, you go through high school and it's the same kind of thing. Like there's just all the teachers are explicitly Christian and seeking to, teach you their subject area, but are also invested in your spiritual discipleship. Like they actually want you to be Christians. I think one of the interesting things in going to a Christian, I guess, again, particularly high school because you're aware of it more, was it's really easy to just assume that you're a Christian. And so it's really easy to just be this kind of beige, vanilla Christian because that's just the assumption that everyone's vaguely Christian. And so whereas at a public school, I know that you guys have talked a lot on this podcast about being a Christian at Kirrawee High or some of the other high schools, you really stand out if you take Jesus seriously, and if you're known as the Christian, you're the Christian kid. It's really unusual at a Christian high school to not be the Christian kid, like to actively say, I'm not a Christian. I don't believe any of this. I think it's rubbish. That takes probably as much guts at a Christian school as it does at a public school to say, hey, I'm a Christian, I take this seriously. What I think is interesting is it's also hard at the other end to take Jesus seriously in a way that actually stands out above that vanilla beige kind of veneer, and to actually be really explicit, like, I'm taking this seriously and it's changing my life, and here is how. And that was a big thing for me when I was in year 9. I had a teacher who really pushed me on that in a really lovely discipleship way. Who's, we were chatting in the playground one time and he just said, Tim, you're a Christian, aren't you? And I said, oh, yeah, I guess so. Christian family,
Aren't
church
we all?
every week,
Yeah.
Christian school. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Ticking the boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just said, okay, well, here's the areas of your life I don't see that playing out.
Blimey.
Which
Okay.
which sounds brutal, and
Yeah.
but it was a really good kick up the pants, because what he was saying is, okay, well, you say this, okay, let's see it.
Yeah.
And what he was noticing was that there are particular areas where, Jesus wasn't Lord of my life, and he was he really wanted me to grow as a disciple of Jesus, and so he pushed me in that way, and that was really good. And one of the key things that he did through that process over a number of weeks and months, I assume, was he said, "Oh, there's this lunchtime group for." Where you can, like a Christian lunchtime group, like Chip Lunch, and you should go along to that just to sort of, really dig deep. And I knew that it was this very small group, one teacher and a couple of really weird fringe kids, at the back of the school somewhere. I'm like, no, there's no way, I'm far too cool to go into that. And he just pushed me and goes, no, I think you should go.
Yeah.
So okay, so I went. And it was as awful as I imagined it would be. And I came back to him and I said, look, that was tragic. And it was boring and dull, and I'm far too cool. I'm a little bit punk rock, and that's far too vanilla for me. And he goes, great, change it.
That's
like,
really cool.
Oh, okay. And so me and my mates then started to try and go regularly and change it. And I think that was year 9. By the time I was in year 11 and 12, me and my mates, we were the key leaders of that group, and it had gone from a couple of kids and a teacher at the back of the school somewhere to one of the either outside or one of the most in the really close to the playground classrooms with big glass windows, and probably 60, 80 kids going along regularly,
cool.
and it wasn't. I'm not trying to take credit for that, but it was the fact that we were being explicitly and boldly Christian, and drawing others into that and being excited about it. And that's what I think was, as I said, it was a little unusual at the time to say, hey, I'm not just this veneer Christianity because that's just expected of everyone is at the school. I really wanted to go and push hard at this. And it was that process that really got me excited about ministry and wanting to do ministry for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And I think a really cool distinction there is you've said you're excited about intergenerational ministry. You've had older people, younger people talking into your life, but you actually let an older teacher speak into your life. I think that's more than just that's having a proper relationship with someone. I think that's a really cool distinction that you had, that he felt permission to say, hey Tim, this is I'm actually going to challenge you here because we have a relationship where I can challenge you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's super important to have with people around you and in church. Have you found having that? Have you found those types of relationships, and how important have they been to you, and letting people guide you and speak into your life? Yeah,
massively. There's been lots of leaders. So another one, when I was in youth group, Daryl Barden was another great leader who, again, because me and my mate were kind of the weird outsiders and everyone else knew each other from Kirrawee High, sometimes we were on the side literally of the games or the activities and whatever. And there was this one, Daryl Barden, Shane Smiltniks was another guy who just really intentionally, it felt like, was seeking us out to just bring us in and have conversations, either at the side of the room or invite us into the game. And so there were lots of different things going on there. So those guys were really, really key. And then as I kind of got older, some of the leaders as well. So Fee Francesconi, Tim Baldwin, Stu Crawshaw, sort of as we went through the different youth groups. A lot of the leaders speaking into us in that way. And in lots of different ways, some it was really explicitly a discipleship relationship. For others, one of the leaders, Dave, he was heaps into punk rock and hardcore screamo type stuff. And we had this night where It was all the leaders got to play their favourite song from a Christian artist.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it was all these different Christian artists. And basically what they were trying to do was show that there's a whole lots of different types of Christian music.
Yeah.
And he played this screamo song after someone else had played like Amy Grant or something. And it was beautiful. I was just like, I was in love.
What band was it?
It was Unashamed, one of the early Tooth and Nail hardcore bands. And there was, again, there was this unique moment in the late 90s called Spirit-Filled Hardcore. So it was all these guys who were in these crazy screaming, like, sound-possessed hardcore bands, but singing about Jesus and Bible lyrics and just being really excited. And I really do believe that was also really formative for me. So I'm really thankful for Dave for introducing me to Christian punk, hardcore metal kind of stuff, because again, there was something about that was resonated with, who I was and the stuff I was into, but was also really explicitly Christian and excitedly Christian, like really just super excited about being Jesus followers. And so through high school, finding those people in church, teachers at school, international and local bands that were really excited about being Jesus followers. Yeah, all of that was, I think, really key in keeping me in the faith, holding me through that process, and also being excited about Jesus as well.
So you were really inspired by people reaching down. How did that affect your relationship with people younger than you?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, through high school, like doing the leadership of that lunchtime group meant that most of the people there were, by the time I was in year 11 and 12, obviously most of them are juniors, so they're, talking to them and teaching them, so ministering to them, but also seeing their passion come forward as well. And there was, towards the end of my year 12, thinking about, okay, who's going to continue this group going on? So trying to invest in people who would then, lead us after I'd finished up, was really cool. About year 9 or year 10, I started in children's ministry at Guy Mere with your grandma, Auntie Bev, which is awesome. And so that was really cool as well. And so I started with the preschool room, and just seeing like these crazy kids. Actually, I won't name names, but some of them are still at our church, and they were crazy at the time. But just loving preschool kids and seeing them love Jesus and the way that they express that idea that Jesus says in Matthew about looking to children and seeing the childlike faith that they have and the way that they take on, show us what it means to be disciples of Jesus. I think probably, again, I wasn't really aware of it at the time, but that was really formative as well, being able to do that. And so that's, from 15 or so, I've been doing children's ministry ever since. Too many years to count now. But yeah, it's really, so looking down the generations, seeing, that was one of the reasons I'm really passionate about children's ministry, is just, I love hanging out with kids and watching them grow and develop and express faith. I love the way that primary school, infant school kids tell me the things that they're learning about Jesus, or the passages they're reading, or the way that they pray, or the way they're trying to follow Jesus. And that's really formative for me still. So I get a great joy out of doing that.
That's awesome. We were speaking with Joel, I think it was the last episode. We very much film these in order.
It's an intentional.
Yes. So we were speaking with Joel last episode about kind of like finishing high school and what that was like, and kind of, just it's a very formative time. There's also a lot of changes going on. So you'd grown up going through that Christian high school experience where you were surrounded by Christians, even if they were more on fire, less on fire. That's all people's lives anyway. But like, how did you find finishing year 12 and then moving on from there?
Yeah, because I'd gone through this leadership stuff at school. I was pretty convinced before I finished high school that I wanted to do ministry. And so I wanted to go and work at YouthWorks outdoors campsites and do outdoor ministry. And my mum really wisely said no. She goes, that's awesome, and I'm really stoked if you want to do ministry for the rest of your life. But I'd love you to go and do something at uni first. Don't care what, just go and do something at uni. Just get some life experience, grow in your maturity. You know, grow as a person.
Encounter more people, get into a different space.
All of that kind of stuff, totally. And so I started in a science degree, lasted about 4 weeks before deciding, nah, just don't care about science all that much. Everyone's finding oxygen in the test tube. I found oxygen in the test tube and I didn't care. So I looked around to find out what else was going on.
That's so good.
And there was but my girlfriend, now wife at the time, she was doing a bit of sociology, and I went to a sociology class with her because I had a period off, and why not?
What uni was this, by the way?
Wollongong Uni.
Yeah.
Yep. So wandered into sociology class lecture. And again, it was kind of one of those moments of just like, oh, I'm in love. Like this is fantastic. Learning about how culture works, how society works, how people think. And I'm just like, yeah, that's really hitting the spot for me. So I finished my first semester in science and then transferred to an arts degree, which was awesome, and ended up majoring in philosophy. One of the weird things about going from a Christian school to a uni class, the first few weeks, when we had classes that were butted up against lunch, I was used to everyone kind of saying grace together before we go out to lunch, because that was just, again, like at a Christian school, it's kind of, you know, Jesus is everywhere. So if you had a period before lunch, it was pretty normal for the teachers to say, all right, we're about to go to lunch. Let's, you know, pray to God and thank him for the food we're about to have and the fun we're about to do. Cool. So I went to uni, and that was one of the weird things. It was like, oh, that's right, we don't say grace all together. At the end of a uni class. So that was a bit weird.
I had the opposite experience going to college. I'd never been in an environment where people were like, oh, now let's pray before an exam, or let's pray before having lunch and after having lunch. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy.
It is like shifting between those different spaces can be really disconcerting. And that's why, like, a lot of people who have grown up in Christian households, and particularly I think as a challenge for those who have gone to Christian schools. When you hit uni, you're maybe for the first time in a significant non-Christian environment. And I know for many people, for whom that's their first significant experience of a non-Christian environment, that can be really challenging for them. And so one of the things that we can be doing as churches is really helping people work through that process of what it means to go from high school to uni. Maybe sometimes for the first time hearing objections to the Christian faith, being surrounded by people who think that being a Christian is a bit loopy, a bit strange, or worse. And so, that can be really difficult. I think, again, because I had a really strong fellowship at church, like the Soul Revival group we were part of was really significant. There was a Christian group at uni, which I kind of dipped in and out of. I wasn't heaps committed to it, mostly because they met on days that I wasn't there. It was an arts degree. I only had to turn up 1.5 days a week.
Amen.
That was my life.
But there were significant people and moments that kind of kept me through that and helped me process all of that really well. But I think that's one of the challenges for people who are entering uni, is doing those things. And particularly if you are doing sort of humanities degrees, that can be a real challenge. Science degrees can be a real challenge. Not that there aren't wonderful Christians in, you know, the humanities and in the science fields and in law and medicine and everything. But sometimes you can feel really lonely. And so that's a real big challenge for that time. I can't remember what your question was and how we ended up here.
The question was pretty much what was next.
What was next? That was next.
And that was next.
So I studied philosophy, and then at the end of my degree, I did what all good art students do, particularly those with a Bachelor of Philosophy. I sold shoes for a couple of years because that's about all you're qualified to do.
What brand of shoes?
So I was working for, I don't know if it's still there, Williams the Shoemen, that used to be at Miranda and then at Menai as well.
Like fancy shoes?
No, it was a pretty medium, it kind of middle of the road shoe store. You know, reasonable quality, but you know, not super expensive, but not budget shoes or us.
So it's not like Big W, but it's
not Big W. So they were a pretty serious shoe company, so there was pretty good quality. And my highlights as fame during that period So there was.
This is actually when we asked what's next. This is the kind of information.
Okay,
we want.
so here's what's next. What's next was I ended up on about 2 seconds of national news footage.
What?
Yeah, because the premier at the time, Bob Carr, announced this sort of payment packages for parents of school kids.
Sure.
And one of the things that was kind of like, this will help you pay for your school shoes. And so they did this, and our little shoe store, Williams at Menai, got picked as the spot where the premier and the news crew and everyone would come, and so he could do his big in front of the cameras, look, I'm giving money to parents. And so he did his thing out the front, and then they came inside and they filmed me fitting shoes on this, high school student, so I made the national news that night for about 2 seconds in between in cutting with Bob Carr going, look at me, I'm awesome.
That's amazing.
So you peaked.
I peaked. Well, after my arts degree, I peaked selling shoes in my 2 seconds of national news footage.
What was the highest seller there? What was your biggest item?
Yeah.
Hot ticket item?
What was the hot ticket item? Actually, there was a period that some super fancy, like massively expensive American brand brought out this fancy looking Ugg boot.
Ooh.
And what our shoe, because we were kind of middle of the road, what we were really good at doing was doing a slightly cheaper version of expensive brands. Okay. And so there was this one, Ugg boot type thing that we released.
Fluffy boot.
Yeah, which was, like only 120 compared to like the 500 or whatever you had to buy for the premium product.
Yeah.
And so everyone, of course, wanted the premium look for the cheap price.
Yeah.
And so that for a number of months, that was our game. We could not get them in from the warehouse quick enough. We were selling out.
I'm sure Joel bought a couple of pairs. He's infamous for his love of Ugg boots.
Yeah.
And sometime after that, I got paid to do children's ministry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where I've been ever since.
So that was like your goal originally when leaving high school.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, so you've done your arts degree like all good.
Yep.
All good shy people.
Yeah. Arts degrees are awesome.
Yeah. And then, so what got you into working? I'm guessing this is kids at Guymer Anglican?
So at the time I was a leader on Sunday mornings for kids ministry, Friday nights for youth ministry. We had a full-time youth minister who was there at the time. He finished up to move up the coast to go and join another church. And so the church, kind of had this full-time pay packet.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, what do we get? Like, we would love to employ people for that. And the choice that the church made at the time was, instead of employing one full-time person to replace Tim, was to actually fund a number of student ministers.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And so there were a number of us, I think that may have been when Jai came on, when Matt came on, when Fee came on, and I came on as well. We were all kind of just working 1.5, 2 days a week.
Yeah.
While also studying. So during that, so I came on 1.5 days working with Tracy, who was already, I think, 4-day-a-week children's minister. So I kind of came in as her 2IC, which was really cool.
That's a party.
Yeah, it was. And so, that's how I ended up on staff at Guymer. And while I was there, I thought, I probably should study ministry and Bible stuff during that time as well. So,
well, you're a student.
Well, I was just kind of being paid as a student ministry and not actually studying. So I thought maybe I should do the student bit. And so started at SMBC part-time and it was lots of fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
Never looked back at the shoes?
Never looked back at the shoes, no. I've never been tempted back into the world of retail.
I can't imagine why.
That's really cool. And then from being a children's minister for a while, you started working with YouthWorks. And what is that role? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So I worked for Guymer for about 7 years.
Yep.
Working my way from, kind of started 1.5 days and I ended up, after 7 years, I was full-time. But during that period, particularly during my study, was convicted that I really liked the nerdy side of children's and youth ministry. So like reading Dead Russians, for example, just like that Full really circle. Excites me. And so I realized that is not everyone's passion. But I should lean into the stuff that God has uniquely made me to be. So I was already starting to think, what's the best, like how can I serve Jesus the best?
Yeah.
Like what does it actually look like? I'm passionate about children's ministry, passionate about youth ministry. I really want young people to know, love and obey Jesus. That's my constant refrain. But God has kind of equipped me with this nerdy brain that really loves the philosophy and the sociology and the education theory and the teaching of that to others so that they can then go and do it. And I also realised that in terms of the creative side of children's ministry, I do not have a lot of the gifts that make people excellent children's ministers. There are a lot of people that I work with now who are their local children's minister in churches who are far better children's ministers than I could be because of their creative skills, the way that they get excited about different things, and the gifts that they have in storytelling and all sorts of things. I think the way that, at this point in time, certainly that God has particularly and uniquely equipped me to serve his church is to be excited about that nerdy stuff and then translate that to others to help equip them for ministry. And so the role at YouthWorks came up, which is basically, I guess it's kind of like a consultancy type role.
Yeah, okay.
And so I basically go around and I hang out with other churches and help them do children's ministry really well. And again, and part of that is also lecturing at YouthWorks College. So I get to lecture in youth and children's and intergenerational ministry. And so, I get to really, dive into that nerdy side of things and do research and readings, write lectures, write trainings, and help others who, as I said, sometimes are heaps better children's ministers than I could ever be, but give them the foundations they need to do their job really well. So I spend most of my week consulting with churches and hanging out with children's ministers.
Really
in non-COVID time, we spend a lot of time in cafes, drinking coffee, reading books, hanging out with people, praying with people, visiting other churches, watching their youth and children's ministry, giving them tips of things. Oh, I've noticed you've done this. What if you tried tweaking this? And then also stealing all the best ideas that I can see from others and going over to others. I'm like, oh, notice this church over here did that. You should try, give that a go. And so I'm able to do that. So yes, that's really fun.
That's very cool. There's it's kind of fun how we almost full circled there from your we started talking about the Russian dude and we ended talking about that kind of thing. And I also was reflecting while you were talking, I'm like, I loved that at some point in this story, there was a moment where you were like, yeah, I am way too cool and grunge to go to this Christian group. And now you're like, what I really love is the nerdy side of kids ministry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The parallels are excellent.
Yeah. Somewhere in my daydreaming, I'd love to write a paper, something and research the ethics of the offspring, which kind of brings those two together. Because I think there's something
for context. What does that mean?
Sorry, the Offspring is a late 90s, early 2000s skate punk band. And what I find listening to their lyrics is they have a really interesting ethic. Because they're a little bit punk and they're like, anti-establishment and, enjoy life. There's a bit of, kind of this only enjoyment matters, only, hedonism kind of stuff. Yeah. But there's a number of songs which, take family responsibility really seriously and looking after others. And
that's so real.
Like, dissing on people who are being lazy and, so there's something that's really intriguing me about that. So that would bring my punk rock and my academic nerdiness together. The ethics of the Offspring.
The perfect synergy.
That would be awesome, but I just don't have time in my life.
I look forward to that book tour.
Yeah, I do. Link in the well, that I think is a nice place to wrap up the chips as we were laughing about at the start.
Important question. We didn't actually ask him.
True.
Do you have what's your chip order? Do you have chicken salt on your chips?
I usually just by default. I mean, I like chicken salt. I'm not super passionate about it. But I mean, it's enjoyable.
Yeah. Sauce?
Not if the chicken salt's good.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If you get a high enough chicken salt quantity.
That's right. Yeah. But not too much. Sometimes it looks artificial and yellow. There's too much chicken salt. You got to find the perfect balance.
Yeah, there is a balance. Balance in life.
Balance in life.
Do you remember that ad that was like, it was pretty much the why not do both thing, but it was a dude who like got chicken salt and was like putting them both on his chips.
That
Super
seems
excited for-
unnecessary.
Right?
Yeah.
I tried it and it wasn't worth it.
Okay. I'm excited for Eck to try and find that ad.
Yes.
Have fun.
Thanks, Eck. Eck and I are also going to learn how to do the YouTube links. It's going to happen.
Thanks so much, Tim,
Pleasure.
for joining us on Chip Lunch.
It's great to be here.
Very cool to have you. If you want to, for those of you listening / watching, if you want to check out any of our other episodes, scroll back. They're pretty fun. You can meet Joel. He'll be back. If you haven't already, there's... you can listen to it on the podcast if you're there, or you can watch it on the YouTube if you're not there. We've got other things happening at Survival Church. We've got the Shock Absorber podcast, which Tim referenced and was a guest on. So if you want to see a familiar face, jump over there. And what do you guys talk about in that episode? You talk about
We're talking about the theology of intergenerational ministry. There's
Excellent.
some
So if you're
$5
excited
words
by
for you.
Tim and Dead Russians and the nerdy side of Tim that we were chatting about.
Yep.
You can go real deep there, which is really cool, really exciting. So check that out. We also have all of our gatherings at church going on to our YouTube channel and our podcast as well. So give them a listen if you want to check them out. Jump on the Discord.
Yeah. If
That's
you have
a
any
thing.
more questions for Tim or for anyone that we've had on or for us, or you just want to chat about things, jump on the Discord.
Yep. There'll be a link in the description. And I think we've ticked all the boxes.
Cool.
Is that how we end?
All ticked off? Do
We
we
need
want
to
to wrap
finish
it with
with
a...
a one way.
We do.
Oh,
we do. That is
Tim's
true.
on it.
Do you want to
Look,
lead us
I've
to that,
listened
Tim?
He's
all
a
the
veteran.
I like and subscribe. So
Oh, well done. Yeah, hit that notification bell.
That's right.
Leave a comment on
Yeah.
YouTube saying, great job, guys.
Please do.
Tell your friends. Tell
So
your
I
mum.
don't have to.
All right.
So we finish with a
finish with the one way.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. One way.
one way.